helping understand how we can support hormone balance in the body, regulate our nervous system a little bit. And that's going to help also with those neurotransmitters in our brain. We want to have good amounts of our serotonin, our dopamine, all those happy chemicals so we can have that happy mood, calm focus when we need it. So I'm going to go into a little bit of how we can do that. This is kind of just a quick intro to signs that you might need to regulate your nervous system, things that you might see if you're feeling tired, if you have that brain fog. See if I can zoom in on this for you guys a little bit. And, this is kind of a stress relief, retreat. So obviously, part of understanding what's going on with our nervous system, our brain, and our spinal cord, and how that's communicating what's going on mentally, emotionally with our body, we're going to have that physiological response to stress, right? Anybody, you feel stressed about something or worried about something, all of a sudden you get like this pain in your neck or this pain in your shoulder or some random thing, right? We know that stress has an impact. We just don't all fully understand it sometimes. So these are some of those signs that you'll see. The brain fog, the fatigue, maybe feeling a little bit on edge, often feeling overwhelmed, maybe a little overreactive or snappy. Anybody gets snappy sometimes, right? Especially when we're tired. That's another thing that can cause that stress response in our nervous system when we haven't gotten enough sleep. That's a big one. Of course, stress is a big one. And even the physical health elements, things like just eating a lot of junk food or a lot of sugars and those kinds of things, some of the additives in our foods, which I'll get to, all those things can trigger a stress response in the nervous system and can show up in lots of different ways. These are some of those ways that you might see it show up. Difficulty with concentration and focusing, feeling a little bit spaced out or kind of like, yesterday, the doctor that shared, she was saying how, or the nurse practitioner, she was saying how you can have that disassociation feeling, like you ever doing something or talking to someone and you're just like, I feel like I'm not all the way here. That's kind of something that can be happening when our nervous system is not functioning quite the way that it needs to be for our optimal health. And then difficult to regulate emotions and mood, that difficulty just keeping that steady mood and emotions. So I'm going to go through some things. This is not a comprehensive session because we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to try to go through a few things. They're going to help regulate your nervous system, help with that gut-brain connection. So that brain, which is our nervous system, is going to be communicating with the gut and helping keep things balanced with the metabolism, the mood, the hormones, and neurotransmitters. We may not go into detox much because that's like a whole other segment on its own, but I might mention a little bit. And then we're gonna end on just focusing on building some small routine things that you can easily integrate into your day that only take a couple minutes here and there. That way you can start supporting regular daily small changes so that you can regulate the nervous system, have better balanced hormones, sleep better, and support good mood. And so this just kind of shows that interaction. We know that mental, emotional, spiritual all interacts. We know that we need to regulate our nervous system because it has such a big impact on so many areas. This is just kind of a quick, hang on, there you go. It really likes me right now. So there's a few different elements going on that we want to consider when we maybe are feeling stressed or feeling that fatigue, feeling that brain fog. We want to consider what's coming into our systems on a regular basis. Do we have a lot of sugar, junk foods, sodas and stuff, fried foods, those kinds of things? Can we make some changes there? It might not be all at once, little by little, right? We want to think about those things. Because that's all going to have an impact. Even the things that we breathe in our environment, right, on a regular basis, our air fresheners, cleaning products, beauty products, all those things have the synthetic chemicals in them, or they can have different synthetics in there that are going to have an impact on the nervous system directly. impact the endocrine system, as well as hormones. So we want to think about those things. If we need more information later, I can always help you guys with that if you need it. And remembering that our skin is one of our largest organs, so what we're putting on our skin, of course, matters as well. And then our nutrients is another element. What kind are we getting enough of the right minerals? Are we getting enough of the right proteins, the right omegas, which I'll go into that in a little bit of what that can look like and what are some of the best things. And then looking at things like, do we have a lot of inflammation going on? Is there something causing a lot of inflammation? The synthetics, the additives in our foods. What's going on with the lining of our gut? Is there a leaky gut situation? Is there some sort of damage from, one of the biggest things that I see with many of my clients is, they're like, well, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was in college, I could eat whatever I want. I felt completely fine. Well, when we're about under 25, the age of 25 approximately, anything younger than that, our cells regenerate like this, like almost instantly. So just because we felt fine eating all those things, doesn't mean that it was good. It just means our body was more quickly able to repair and rejuvenate. And after about the age of 25, it steadily starts to decline, where we eat those things and the body is not able to recover as much. And over time, it builds and builds and builds, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later, you start feeling it. It can show up as inflammation. It can show up as hormone dysregulation. It can show up as things like eczema, headaches, fatigue, brain fog, some of those nervous system issues that we just mentioned, because the gut is talking to the brain. They communicate through those nerves in the spinal cord. Nutrient deficiencies are one of the biggest issues that we see that cause issues as well. So that was on that last one there a little bit. Okay, so if we want to keep a nice balance with the nervous system, the hormones, which help us manage stress, and those neurotransmitters, we want all those to be nice and balanced and happy. We need to consider some of these things. So one of the biggest things is that blood sugar level. Even if you don't have diabetes, you feel like you maybe don't eat that much sugar, it's very rare. It's when you're eating, your sweets, it's how your meals are, and it's understanding the content of our meals. I had one client who said, well, I didn't realize that rice was a starch. I didn't realize that, because they were thinking of it as a grain. Yes, but within about 30 seconds to a minute, those kinds of starchy foods will turn into glucose in our bloodstream. So it's not a lot different than eating sweets, unless, you consider the other additives of some of the candy and sweets and stuff. But that blood sugar level. So that's directly going to be talking to our thyroid, our hormones, our adrenals, and that will send signals through the nervous system that's going to be impacting our serotonin and everything. So I do have, you can see, I like this diagram here. I don't know if I can zoom in on it or not, but with the endocrine system, you can see how everything's kind of talking to each other. Our brain is going to be sending signals of, are we hungry? Are we not hungry? What do we need? What don't we need? We don't have enough serotonin, or we don't have enough dopamine, or we don't have enough melatonin. The brain is going to be sending signals to the gut and the pancreas, and they're going to be responding accordingly. Now, that can be completely out of whack when we have an imbalance going on, whether it's a lot of stress, a lot of lack of sleep, a lot of junk food, or whatever, or combination thereof, that can be out of whack. So you can see here, the ghrelin hormone is the hormone that's released that tells the brain we're hungry, we need to eat. And that's typically that's released from the stomach. And that's going to tell the brain we're hungry, and then usually we'll eat. And the liver and the pancreas will be responding with the insulin and the glycogen when we eat to hopefully metabolize that and convert it into energy. But I'll show you in a minute what can happen when it's not quite right. And then our leptin is usually has to do with our adipose or fat cells that are saying we're full, we've been satisfied, we're done. Now, if you notice that you're constantly overeating, you may have an imbalance in the leptin, or you may have a decrease in sensitivity to leptin, which means you may have an early beginnings of an insulin resistance. That's usually a sign, but it's not like a full-fledged, and it won't show up on a blood test or anything, because there's no like A1C1 that they can see yet that's out of, it's just the very beginnings of an imbalance. So I'm going to go through that in a minute. So here you can see this is that insulin resistance cycle. And this is very, very common to have this, that your numbers will look fine. You'll go to the doctor and they'll be like, all your numbers look good. But you're like, why do I feel crappy? Okay, this is one of the biggest things that can be happening. It's very, very common, especially in the US here, where we have a lot of fast, convenient food and processed food and stuff. So you have that ghrelin hormone, you're hungry, you want to eat something. So you'll eat whatever it is. A lot of times, we reach for our snacks. What are our snacks? Our chips, our crackers, our pretzels, or sweets, or whatever's quick, right, and convenient. A lot of times, most of that stuff is pretty starch heavy or sugar heavy or greasy. And that's going to tell the body, we need insulin. So the body's going to increase that insulin. And then if this has been going on for a while, eventually the cells go, we can't take anymore. We've been doing this for so long. We're inflamed. We're tired. That it will not accept the insulin. So the insulin will not be able to take those molecules of glucose and everything and convert it directly to energy. Instead, the cells go, we can't take anymore. Send it to storage. So where does it go? It goes right to adipose fat storage. That's where it's going to go. Then as soon as that happens, it's been converted. We've got all that insulin. And then our blood sugar will dip, because that glucose went from being in the system to sent to storage. The blood sugar level will drop, not super low, but enough. All of a sudden we get that ghrelin hormone. That ghrelin hormone goes, hello, blood sugar dropped a little bit. So then you get super hungry, like really hungry. And usually it's not for the good stuff. Usually you want bread, you want chips, you want that burger, you want those fries, you want the sweets, whatever it is. Then you'll come back around, it starts all over again. You might feel a little bit tired, and then you're going to get hungry. That's because you have, with the insulin spike, it can create that little bit of that food coma. That's your insulin coming up. And then after you feel tired, usually there's some sort of hunger that happens. It might be 30 minutes, it might be an hour, it depends. You'll be hungry, but usually hungry for junk, and then you're just going to go right around and round and round and round that cycle.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So how would that relate? Like, I'm thinking in my head, someone who says they're pre-diabetic, they've been diagnosed with being pre-diabetic.
This is pre-diabetic, but
here.
there's a spectrum of severity, okay, right? So it can be.
But once you hit the diabetic, does that mean that insulin is not producing anymore? It's like shut off. It's like
There's different types of diabetes. Okay. So sometimes the pancreas gets tired and it stops producing enough insulin. Sometimes there's just a ton of insulin and the body can't figure out what to do, and it's just storing the fat, but it ends up creating that inflammation. The A1C1 is a measurement of basically the inflammation and a couple other things. So you can have insulin resistance where it's just like what we consider just normal, like you're just hungry and you eat and you're around and around and around. You can't lose that stubborn belly fat, that kind of thing. And then you can have the insulin resistance where it's gone so long that now we're seeing that A1C1 is starting to creep up a little bit, but it's not fully diabetic yet. They have a certain number range for that A1C1 that's a pre-diabetic range. And then they have a range that's like, you definitely have diabetes. And that's type 2 diabetes. Obviously, there's also the other type that's a whole different thing. So that's kind of what's going on there. Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of honing a little bit in more on what is the liver's role in this, and hormones. A lot of people don't know that our liver does like 500 functions in our body. So understanding specifically what it does with our insulin and our blood sugar is going to help us understand what's happening with hormones and our blood sugar. And that's going to actually directly talk to our thyroid, which is the next thing I'll share. So here you can see we have our blood sugar goes up because of whatever we ate typically. And our pancreas is going to do one of two things. Our pancreas is either going to send glycogen to our liver if we ate a lot of proteins and omegas and greens and the good things. Our pancreas will be like, we don't need that much insulin. We're going to just send glycogen to the liver, and the liver starts burning your fat for fuel and starts tapping into your fat cells, starts sending signals for more serotonin, starts calming down your central nervous system, so you probably won't be as stressed, or you're able to handle more stress a little bit better and have a calmer mood. You're going to have happy thyroid hormones happening because the liver is going to communicate that to the thyroid and the endocrine system. Okay, now if we have a lot of too much sugars happening, too much starches, all that kind of thing, it's going to be like, we need insulin. ASAP insulin, okay? A lot of it. And insulin is not bad, and there's nothing wrong with it. It does its job when we have the proper balance going on. But when we have too much for too long, too frequently, we can have this inflammatory cycle happening. So we've got glucose uptake from the bloodstream with the insulin. The insulin's trying to take that glucose and convert it to energy. But then if the cell is too inflamed and too tired from that going on too long, the insulin goes to the liver, and the liver is working hard to try to help modulate that constant increase of insulin and that inflammation. The liver is actually trying to help with that. So what a lot of people also don't know is you can have what looks like cirrhosis of the liver or fatty liver just from diabetes, or insulin resistance for long extended periods of time over the years. So it's going to do its job. It's working. The liver works really hard when we have a lot of sugar going on, and it will help lower that blood sugar, but it does end up releasing, can't remember the name of the hormone, and it will store fat. It will be stored as fat. So you can kind of see how that works there. Yeah, so we want the glucagon. How do we get the glucagon? We get that by eating the right proteins, omegas, grains, fruits, and veggies on a regular basis, with a small amount of grains or, rice or things like that are whole grains, hopefully, and the occasional, treat is fine. I always teach that with my clients. Like, I don't want you to be on a pendulum. I don't want you to be on a yo-yo diet. I don't want you to be like, okay, I'm going to get healthy, and then for 30 days or whatever, 60 days, no carbs, no sugar, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, your brain is sabotages. You have a bad day, you're tired, you're stressed, something happens, you're eating a whole box of cookies, a whole thing of ice cream, a whole thing of chips. That's called yo-yo. That is because our brain, our the nervous system cannot handle the extremes for very long. It only lasts pretty short term. And there's the rare person who can do it that has a really strong mental game, but it's not common. So what you can do, and I'll get to that in a little bit, is have a balance. I always teach, think of your day like a pie. I don't know if I put that document up here. Let's see if I have that document pulled up. I think there. Okay, so yeah, you got 80 to 90% of your day. Just think, did I, like 80 to 90% of today, did I eat all my good greens, my proteins, my omegas, my water, all my things? And then let yourself have a little slice of something, a little bit of chocolate, a little whatever it is. And guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna set up a reward cycle in your brain. Your brain's gonna release some dopamine and go, oh, we like this. Let's keep doing this. And if you can do that really consistently, and like, hey, you have a little piece of cake or a little something, but you drink your water and you take your good supplements, or you do your herbal teas and things, your body can handle it. Over time, you're going to build sustainable habits that's going to last a lot longer and prevent that yo-yo of swinging back to the whoops and then what happens when we swing back? Oh, I ate the chips, I give up, we toss in the towel, I failed, that's it, I'm done. Is very, very common. A lot of people have that. So we can sustain a lot better when we have a balance. So that's the balance that I kind of recommend. If you can do that, it'll take you really, really far. Okay, so for our thyroid, like I said, the liver And, those hormones, the ghrelin, the leptin, the glucagon, when those are going on, when we have the right balance, we can support the thyroid. There's a lot of correlation between what's happening with our thyroid hormones and what's happening with our insulin and our metabolic state. Okay. And I'm not going to go super in depth today because I don't want to do too long. But of course, I'm here if you have questions. I have longer PDF guides if you'd like to read, or I can always set up like a longer consultation with Zoom or whatever if you want more information. So you can see here, too little or too much insulin can affect our thyroid hormones directly, our T3, our T4, our TSH, all impacted by that. The blood sugar levels also are impacting. The higher our blood sugar levels are on a regular basis, it's going to make it harder for our thyroid to do what it needs to do and create enough of our thyroid hormones. So that's always important to remember. This can be linked to autoimmune. And when we have these metabolic issues going on for long enough, it can trigger an autoimmune issue. A lot of autoimmune issues have a genetic trait. However, what's going on with the metabolic state, stress, and hormones and sleep, those four things have a direct impact on actually triggering that genetic trait to come through for a lot of things, not just autoimmune, even a lot of genetic issues can be very decreased about, and I have to look at the numbers again, but off the top of my head, it was like 70% or so of genetic diseases can be severely decreased, we can prevent the genetic presentation of those diseases by managing the metabolic state. That not 100%, obviously, things can still happen. Genes are our genes, yes, but there are things that we can do with that metabolic state. What's that metabolic state? That is sleep, stress management, exercise and movement, our deep breathing, as well as our nutrition, right? Obviously, the nutrition is a big factor. All right. And then our pituitary gland, our hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenals, they're all talking to each other. That's in our brain. Pituitary is in our brain. Our adrenals are attached to our kidneys. They're directly telling the body what's going on with stress, with hormones, and the nutrition. And that is all going to be telling the thyroid what we need or don't need, or inhibiting the thyroid from doing what it needs to be doing because of that metabolic state, that inflammation, that blood sugar level, all that. So this, like I said, this is kind of a quick overview because of time, but I just wanted you guys to have at least a little bit of an understanding. Okay, so how do we regulate that blood sugar? How do we help with this metabolic state that we're talking about? We're going to change our habits. We're going to look at our daily routines, and I have a page that I'll get to where we're going to break that down a little bit. And we're going to look at where can we increase our good lean protein sources, our omega-3s, are the right form of our B vitamins in our foods or maybe supplements, things like our greens, things that are very micronutrient dense. How can we increase those in our daily routines and still allow ourselves that little slice of the pie so we have a little treat? That's as long as you can manage your size, your portion of the treat. If you can't control your portion, then that's another discussion that we can go into on how to help control the portions and figure that out. And then that's going to help us manage our hormones and the inflammation, that metabolic state. Things like using different herbs or herbal teas can really have an effect as well. And we want to lower that stress hormone. We don't want no cortisol. We need a little bit of cortisol. We need a little bit of adrenaline. Those are mostly released from those adrenal glands. We want some of that when we wake up in the morning. That's what gives us some oomph and some energy to push through the day. That combined with the right nutrients like our B vitamins and things like that. Our minerals, if you don't have enough minerals, you're going to be in trouble. Okay. That is okay. But when the issue occurs when about halfway through our day, we have too much cortisol ramping up all the way up to bedtime. That's when you start having issues. That's when the nervous system can be stuck in more of a fight or flight or freeze state. That's when it starts really impacting, when it's too high for too long, then you're gonna have dysregulated sleep, dysregulated hormones, all of that. So we're gonna regulate that nervous system, which some of our other sessions this weekend, we've been talking about that. And your sleep, we regenerate our hormones, our thyroid and everything, our adrenals, they replenish while we sleep. Women, in recent studies, we're seeing women need about 9 hours of decent sleep. If you need to wake up, use the restroom once or twice, that's okay. But you want to really shoot for doing that at least 2 to 3 times a week, minimum, to really keep your hormones and your adrenals supported. That doesn't mean you have to have 9 hours of REM sleep the whole time, because that's not how it works. REM is kind of in a cycle, but you want to really prioritize good sleep at least a few days a week so you can replenish those hormones. Men don't need to do that when they sleep. Their hormones regenerate all day long. That's not fair, right? I know. Sleep, and then of course the stress management. Like I said, we want to regulate those stress hormones so they're not getting out of control and ramping up too much. Okay. Any other questions before we go on? Okay. So here's some stress management techniques, a little bit. So we're just going to go into a little bit of what are some things that you can do in your routine? What are some tools that we can have in our tool belt to start making some of these little changes? And again, my goal when I work with my clients and everything is to make sure we have simple things that we can do. So it's not overwhelming. So you don't feel like you have to do 20,000 things, because then what happens? Analysis paralysis. You go, I don't know. Oh, well, I give up. We want to start with those little things. So this is what I recommend. I actually found this nice little checklist, and you guys have this available. If you're watching the replay, I can send that to you if you don't have it. And what you can do is you can make copies of this. If you like to be organized and have a visual for your stuff, you can make copies of it and do it as a daily thing, or you can make it a weekly thing too. You can do it once a week or once a day, depending on what your schedule looks like. And really prioritize what those things are you want to focus on for that day or that week for your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And I like that this kind of had a little bit of both, and you can really customize it based on what you need. So what I encourage you to do under today's goals or notes, either one, is to just break down what is 1 or 2 little things that I can change in my morning routine, my middle of the day, lunchtime-ish routine or afternoon, and my evening routine before bed to optimize the right nutrition, proteins, omegas, greens, all of that, manage stress, and regulate that nervous system. What is 1 or 2 things? I encourage you on these lines to write like AM or morning, and then noon or whatever afternoon, and then evening, and then actually write down a couple of things for each of those that you can add into your routine. So here's some ideas. What are some things that you can do? You can add in movement into your routine. Now this has 30 minutes. Depending on how busy you are, I'm a busy mom. I can't always do 30 minutes, but I can usually squeeze in 10 or 15 minutes once or twice a day. That's usually reasonable. One of the biggest things with insulin resistance, or if you think you have that something kind of beginning of that inflammatory metabolic situation, is when you feel hungry. How do you break that insulin resistance cycle we were talking about? When you feel hungry, drink a little water and move, or even if it's 5 minutes, okay? Take a short walk, do some stretches or just little exercises if you're in an office, you can just, stand up, do some stretches for, a few minutes, or take a little walk. Anything you can do for move about 5 to 10 minutes. What that will do is that will actually tell your liver to produce that glycogen that we were talking about and tap into your fat storage. You'll start burning your fat for fuel. Your blood sugar will start to regulate, your hormones will start to regulate. You might still be a little hungry. So after that, you're still going to eat. We're not going to skip eating, but we're going to move first to tap into that fat storage for fuel. And then we're going to eat, and we're going to focus on those nutrient dense foods, those proteins, minerals, greens, omegas. I love seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds. These all are highly micronutrient dense, proteins and omegas and minerals in there. Okay. So when you can grab, and those are quick and easy, you can grab them so easy. Carry them in little bags in your purse, your bag, then you can grab those. So if you can do that, move, get water and minerals in your system, and then eat. You're going to control your portions. You're going to rev up your metabolism. You're going to burn your fat for fuel. Okay. Then you can do mindfulness, meditation, prayer. I love using prayer and scripture to regulate that nervous system, manage the stress, manage the cortisol levels. You can try progressive muscle relaxation, which is basically another form of like a meditation, closing your eyes and just envisioning, you know, relaxing, right? There's lots of different techniques for that. If we need to go through more of that later, we can. Some sort of stretching or yoga type movement can be very beneficial, or like visualizations, like picturing sitting on a beach or something or whatever, to just help, again, regulating the emotions, the stress, the cortisol levels and everything. And then the slow, deep breathing. That's one of the number one things. Stretching and breathing are the top two things that are really going to help regulate that nervous system. So if you can put those together, phenomenal. If you can do some stretches, add some deep breathing, and then add something mental and emotional, like the scripture, the gratitude, mindset, or visualization, then you're going to really ramp up those benefits, and you're going to optimize the best impact there. Some more ideas. You can add these into your routine. Some of this is a little blurry, sorry about that, but starting your day with water, you can start your day with like a detox. One of two things, depending on what works for your routine and what you feel like fits for your needs. You can start your day, I always say, have a glass of water on your bedside. So when you wake up, you have water ready to go, or bottled water, and something you can put in your water that's easy. So some sort of mineral, you know, like a powder mineral supplement or something like that. I actually have a liquid one that I just do a little drop of that full of minerals, or like a packet of like greens. You can use lemon or lime. I have that listed on here. Lemon or lime in your water is a really good detox as well, and actually helps cleanse the liver. So if you feel like you need that liver cleanse, maybe start with that. And greens are also going to support that liver as well. You can start with your day with something like that. Then you can still have your coffee a little bit after that. That's okay. Or tea or whatever. But if you start with that, you're going to set your adrenal system and your hormone system up to function a lot better than if you just started with coffee, or if you just started with whatever you eat for breakfast. Okay. And of course, you're still going to eat as well, but we want to really prioritize protein. Women should be getting 100 grams of protein a day. I know that sounds like a lot, but eggs, protein shakes, but you have to balance your proteins with the right minerals, and you need your like your vegetables. You can't, like, keto is fine temporarily. It's not a long-term thing. Okay. So you do want those 100 grams of proteins, but you want to balance it with all your greens and veggies and fruits. So you have that fiber and those other vitamins and minerals to balance it out. And then we can talk about this another time, but watching out, just being careful about all those extra grains, processed foods, all of that kind of stuff, things with additives and fillers. Here's some other ideas that you can use to add into your routine if you like. Reading, you know, listening to podcasts or TED Talks, those that like personal, professional development type stuff can really help as well. Doing certain types of puzzles and things for the mental capacity, and it can be a stress relief too, depending on the person. Watching how much you're on your phone or your screens, especially before bed, right? Adding in stretching, your water, like I said, of course, your nutrition, we've talked about that. We've talked about the movement and exercise, practicing gratitude. And by the way, just to, on that exercise point really quick, a lot of people think they have to go to the gym like an hour a day or 2 hours a day or whatever in order to lose weight, in order to get the results that they want. That's not really true. That's kind of a myth. You can do 15 to 20 minutes of exercise today, or a day, per day, and change your nutrition, manage your stress, get your sleep, and you'll have as good or better results than doing an hour of cardio every single day. That's important to understand. And then obviously that emotional, spiritual well-being is really important. We know everything's connected. We want to make sure we're doing our gratitude. I always encourage scripture, prayer, journaling. You know, having that moral support that you need, make sure you have people you can talk to, that's family or mentors or a counselor, all those kinds of things, right? When you need that. And then your quiet time. There's two different types of people that process differently typically. I mean, everyone's a little bit different. Some people need to talk to someone to process through stress and emotions. And that's called external processing, right? Some people need quiet time to internally process, but it actually requires a lot of time. I have family members that absolutely detest external processing and need quiet time, a certain amount of quiet time every day, or else they feel like they're going to lose their mind because they have to have time to process the stress, the emotions, the thoughts, all the things. Like, so keep that in mind, whichever one that you are, or if you have family members that you want to consider that too, because we have to understand that about each other, right? And then, yeah, you have your routine. I think that was all that I had because I wanted to keep our time not too long today. There's just a couple more ideas for routines on this page here. I kind of put them in bigger so you can hopefully see them. More ideas that you guys can use. So this is just a quick summary as we wrap up with this. Starting your meals, like I said, with the movement or stretching for 5 to 10 minutes and regulating that nervous system. Studies have shown that taking a minute, 1 minute, to focus on what you're grateful for before you start a meal, your metabolism will shoot through the roof. Your happy hormones will start going, your serotonin. You're going to process the nutrients a lot differently when you are not highly stressed going into that meal. So always keep that in mind as well. So it makes a lot of sense when we say grace before meals, right? It's actually biologically beneficial. Then, like I said, drinking that water first before snacks and meals. You can add in that gratitude as well, and the movement and stretching that we talked about. There's a couple suggestions on here of how you can kind of build up that endurance for waiting to eat when you are craving something. Like people will say hold ice cubes for 5 minutes to build up that mental stamina for self-discipline. So there's ways of building up that self-discipline too. We can get to that later. Activity, movement, stretching, like I said, to help break that insulin resistance. And I put on there reading scripture because there was one lady I talked to years and years ago, and she said one of the best things she ever did for her health was have her Bible out on her kitchen counter, I think it was. Every time she was hungry for a snack or a meal, she would always have a spiritual snack first. And she said, I would go over and just read a scripture. And I don't know if she just picked randomly or if she was going through certain ones. I don't think it matters that much. But it was just the discipline, the self-discipline of having that spiritual snack first. And I can bet there's not studies on this that I've seen, but I can bet that she probably made better food choices after that, right? I would put money on that.
Yeah.
because it's just that little, and it could literally be one verse, 1 minute, 1 minute. Okay. Then you still eat after that. But I think that's probably one of the best things I have ever heard. And now we have them on our phone. We can do it when we're on the go too, yeah. Right? We can have that spiritual snack first. So that was something I just thought was amazing. I had never heard that before, and I always share that. Being careful about taking caffeine with supplements. So if that's a soda or a tea or actually coffee, you want to separate your supplements from taking those things because they can decrease the amount of nutrients you're getting out of those vitamins and supplements and things like that. Watching out for gut fermentation. That's just sometimes when we have too many types of foods all together, that can create gas, bloating, because there's just too much. So we've got dairy and starches and a lot of vegetables and stuff. Sometimes if you notice after your meals, you're like always bloated, always whatever. Look out for those, the gluten, the dairy, those kinds of things, sugars, additives. B, you want to be aware that sometimes we just need to start spacing things out a little bit, which makes sense why we used to eat meals in courses, right? We used to have, our salad and then our, whatever. And it makes sense because our body can't digest vegetables at the same speed as it digests protein. It takes us 3 to 4 hours to process our protein. Our vegetables and starches are usually less than an hour. So if you have that sitting in there, this is already digested and it's still working on the protein. Guess what's happening? Fermentation. So keep that in mind. Might be something to think about separating things out. Regulating the blood sugar, we already talked about all that, so we know we've already mentioned that. And then the minerals, like I said. One of the things that happens is very, very common. We burn through our minerals every day. So people think, oh, I just need minerals when I'm like under the weather, fighting cold or whatever. No. Every single day we should be replenishing. We burn through our potassium, our magnesium, our zinc, our folate, our calcium. Every single day we're burning through that. We're using it. Our metabolism needs it. Our hormones need it. Our digestive system needs it. When we're moving and exercising, our muscles are using some of these minerals. Our brain is using some of these minerals. If you do not replenish your minerals every single day, you are depleting. It's going to pull minerals from somewhere. Guess where it's going to pull minerals from? Your bones. Your bones are made out of, I can't remember the number right now, but not just calcium. Your bones made out of like 30 different minerals. If we do not replenish, your body will pull minerals from somewhere, your teeth, your bones, all that kind of thing. So absolutely replenish your minerals, get good quality minerals and replenish every day. Supporting our adrenals and sleep, we talked about that one already. And then managing that cortisol and stress so that we can regulate. And that is, then we just have our different strategies. So I'll open up for questions. And if you guys are watching later, then let's connect. And if you need more information or set up a session, I can do that. Let's see if I can, there we go.